but if we keep doing that, in here, it becomes counterproductive. I don't know whether it takes, let me read you the definitions, a little bit, it's a little bit small, but let me read you the definitions of the four roles to give you a little bit of a handle. So, the citizen role, the normal citizen is grounded in the center of society and is a source of legitimate power. And grounded is typical, not a radical, not a left, just thing. When filling the citizen role, the activist puts their social activism in the center of society and grounds it in widely held values like freedom, equality, justice, patriotism. And that's why, for example, when we did the archive thing, our banner said, "Defend our Constitution, arrest Bush Cheney." I don't have it on, but my arrest Bush T-shirt has the section of the Constitution in the back, because it's trying to ground it in that central thing. What was that appalling piece of legislation which kind of negated the whole Bill of Rights we had? What was that called? Patriot Act. Okay. When filling the rebel role, the activist puts critical social problems and moral violations into the public spotlight. Rebels use youth methods outside the normal political channels, including nonviolent direct action, community education in the form of rallies, marches, leaflets, and petitioning. When I do that, I'm talking to my timekeeper, who's helping me out here. Then we'll talk about, change agent. When filling the change agent role, the activist educates, motivates, and organizes the public, and public and activists become actively involved in the democratic process. So it's sort of more of a background role. Going on with that, they promote citizen-based democracy in which all segments of society are engaged in resolving the social problems. That's what we've got to remember, because if we're looking for big numbers, we've got to bring people in, not push them away. I like to say, getting people from the that our role is to find people sitting on the fence and invite them over our side rather than pushing them off on the other side. Reformer role. When filling the reformer role, the activist promotes the movement through mainstream systems and institutions such as courts, legislatures, lobbying, referenda, lawsuits, etc. So that becomes, you can see why, here's the reformer role, right, down here, right, don't go to the bottom. There's no point going to court when nobody's supporting it. There's no point using the, when you get down to the end, when it's getting a lot of support in Congress, then you start coming up in here. The citizens, so after we get through stage 5, and we start, then we can start moving, the citizen role is the one that comes up in here. So, actually there's a section, effective and ineffective.
Elliott, I have one question.
Yes.
Part of this. We said earlier that there's the government reason for going into a war and there's the real reason. I'm kind of fuzzy on what is the real reason for Afghanistan. I mean, I know what we've been told. What do you think the real reason is?
I think the real reason for every war is the same.
Money, pipeline.
You know, I went through this thing thinking, okay, let's see, I don't want to tell you my whole, I had to spend time talking about all my philosophies. But I remember thinking, okay, so every day we're in Iraq cost us $720 million a day. Right? There's another way of looking at that. Each day we're in Iraq, $720 million is taken out of the blood, sweat, and tears of the American working man and put in the pocket of the filthy rich. Now where I come from, we call $720 million motivation. I gotta be honest, if you offered me $720 million a day, I'd figure out a justification for keeping the war going. I mean, geez, one day I could feed the world for a week. So 2 days I could feed them for 2 weeks. One day I could, build industry, in 2 weeks I could build industry in South Africa. I'd find a justification, let alone my own gain.
One of the problems with country is that we've never fought a defensive war. Every war we fought from the Revolutionary War on has always been an imperialist war. And there's been the same characteristics for every war. The real reasons are never divulged easily to the public. The ostensible reasons are the reasons that your history books tell you we went to war primarily for defensive reasons, which has never been true. But the real reasons we go to war is for natural resources, to gain trade monopolies, to have control over certain countries that would endanger our allies, to make money for the defense industry, and they're not obvious reasons, but they're reasons which are found out. You don't read it in your history textbooks. This is why people so easily accept what the newspapers and the books tell them are the reasons for war. Because there isn't any reason why anybody in this room or any of our forebears should have fought any war at all.
And,
Amen.
and what Obama now is saying, oh, you're gonna be attacked by Al-Qaeda. It's gonna come right here.
Yeah.
It's the same old stories.
It's the same old story.
always the
You
same
gotta
stories.
protect your family.
Defending America.
Yeah,
Mushroom
defend your
clouds.
home.
Yeah, absolutely, there's no question about it. Let me go on to another thing. If we take, let me look at these. So, if we can think about actions, movements. So I like to think in terms of movements, campaigns, and actions. Okay? So we had this list before. So, which of these are movements, which of these are actions, which of these are campaigns? What about the anti-war?
Civil rights on there. You didn't put the civil rights people.
No, there's lots, there's a million of them. There's a million that go on here. What about the anti-war movement? Would you call it an action, a movement, or a campaign?
Movement.
Okay, that's a movement. What about women's suffrage? Movement. What about emancipation?
Political act.
Is that?
That was a political act.
Well, it was a.
The proclamation was, but there was a
movement.
movement that preceded it.
Right,
Yeah.
of course.
Incidentally, that was not the real reason that we fought the Civil War.
Absolutely, absolutely. Indian independence. Independence of India. Movement.
Common sense.
What about the Salt March?
Movement.
As an action.
Action. I mean, actually, the actual Salt March is pretty long, so it's either a campaign or a movement or an action, absolutely. Gay rights, again, let's see if we've got some other actions, things that might qualify as, most of these are fit into these. Okay, what about the 1918 Seattle
Action.
General Strike?
Action.
Action. Okay, so I like to think about, if you take your actions, a collection of actions, same actions, and put them into a campaign, you greatly amplify their power. It's like putting a motor in your bicycle. Same actions, same amount of work, but if they're woven into a campaign, they're more effective. So what's the defining quality of a campaign? What's the difference between campaign and action? I like to define a campaign as having three qualities. The actions are linked. Okay, here we go. Why didn't I say it before? Sequential. How do we spell sequential?
SEQ.
SEQ.
If I just been a little slower, you wouldn't have known I couldn't have done it.
UENTIAL.
And escalating. ESC.
ALATE.
Sequential. Probably sequential.
Okay. Linked, sequential, and escalating. Linked, what does that mean?
Connected to the major cause.
Connected to each other. Yeah. And that usually, you know what that usually looks like? That's usually messaging and imaging. So, your logos, your message, something so when they see one action and they see another action, they say, oh, that's all the same action, that's all the same thing. They don't get confused about it. And it's very, and it can be very important.